It's time for Michigan's newest sports talk show, Mitten Madness.
And here he goes. Defense win championship.
Michigan sports talk from here in Battle Creek. The latest stories, the biggest games, all across the Mitten State.
That's not something to play with.
Streaming live and on demand on the 95.3 WBCK app. Here are your hosts, Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes.
Hello there and good morning. It is Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes. Let's talk Michigan sports for the next hour as we dive into the weekend. Hopefully spring is coming because it's Big Ten tournament time. We're getting ready for March Madness, but we got to settle these conference championships. First, the Big Ten tournament's going to get started down in Indianapolis on Wednesday. We're going to break down the chances for the Michigan Wolverines and the Michigan State Spartans and how we expect that they'll perform in that tournament and also against each other this weekend. I know Da'Jon's got some big feelings on that game. Speaking of which, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm okay. I'm hanging in there. Life has a weird way of showing you how to be humble. So, yeah, I'm going to just
through your sports teams,
often through sports teams. And I'm just going to hope that, Michigan can end the season on a high note and then ride that momentum into the Big Ten and NCAA tournaments.
You and me both. Alabama and Michigan have been somewhat, mirrors of each other in their respective conferences where most of the season they've been near or at the top, and here down the stretch, things have not looked good. We will pick the Iron Bowl, a basketball matchup at the end of the show, as well as Michigan and Michigan State. But let's
Paul Bunyan.
Yeah, Paul Bunyan's on the line. I think he might stay in Lansing, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, but like I told you yesterday, I feel like it's our fault that our teams are where they are.
It could be.
As soon as we started talking about college basketball heavily on Mitten Madness, our teams went down the hole.
Right. And just ours. Like, it's a lot of teams. Like, look at Florida right now. Like, who thought Florida would be where they're at right now?
It's bizarre.
Maryland is in a position to finish second in the Big Ten. Who thought Maryland was going to do that? There's a lot going on in college basketball. It's exciting, and it's what you want on March 8th as you're listening, March 7th for us. Let's get into things, and let's start with the Spartans. It's what makes the most sense. They have been on fire for weeks now. I mean, it has been nothing but dubs against ranked opponents and against an Iowa Hawkeye team that can sneak up on you. After those 3 losses in 4 games against 2 of the West Coast teams down in Southern California and a shocking loss to Indiana at home while they were looking to settle a record for Coach Izzo. But nonetheless, they closed this thing out with 6 straight wins, and now they head into tomorrow's matchup with the Michigan Wolverines at noon on CBS. And if State wins, they will win the Big Ten outright. If they lose, it does open up the doors for a couple of weird things, but nothing too major. They will at least get a share of the Big Ten regular season title. If Michigan loses, we'll get into all of that. There's a lot of chaotic things that can happen with that second place finish in the regular season of the Big Ten. But for the Spartans, I mean, it's the same as we've been discussing. They have gotten hot exactly when they needed to. Now they just need to carry that momentum. How do you traverse carrying that momentum through the Big Ten tournament, though, is the big question that teams in State's position every single year have to work out for themselves. What do you say for Michigan State? Is this a let's go take care of the Big Ten, prove that we're the baddest of the bad in the best conference in college basketball, at least in local circles? Some southern circles might argue the SEC, but should they, go all out, try to win this tournament? Or is this the time to say, let's collect ourselves and get ready for the big tournament because we feel like we can win it?
So I'm going to say, first off, I've said 1,000 times over, and I will never not say it. Michigan State is like a different team than every other team in the country. They could care less about winning the Big Ten tournament. They really could. They're focused on Madness. They're focused on the NCAA tournament and what can come from that for them. So if they go in and they lose like the first, second game, they're going to look at it like, okay, yeah, we were the best team in the Big Ten. Yeah, we should have won the Big Ten tournament, but we a 1 seed, we a 2 seed. Let's go win the big dance. That's really all that matters. The Big Ten trophy looks nice in the trophy case, but you know what looks nicer? A national championship trophy. And that's what they got their eyes on. I think other teams really value taking that momentum through their conference tournament and earning that automatic bid or just winning those games to make themselves feel really good before going into the field that is going to have the best competition in the country. But Michigan State doesn't care. They already feel like they're supposed to be in that field. They're comfortable in that field. That's where they're going to be because that is what they do. So it won't surprise me at all if Michigan State were to lose at some point in the Big Ten tournament and still bounce back and have a fantastic run in the NCAA tournament. Other teams, you just have to continue to be yourselves. I think teams start to get a little frantic. I think they start to overstress. They start to worry because, at that point it's win or go home, and a lot matters. And you don't want to be the reason why your team didn't advance when things could have easily been different. So just continue to be yourselves. I think a lot of teams lose a little bit of their identity going into playoff ball. Be yourselves. That's what got you there. So don't stop doing that. Be yourselves and just continue to play good basketball.
Is there any argument because at the moment, according to bracketology, they are not a 1 seed. They're a 2 seed in the Auburn bracket, which is a lot less favorable than taking that one away from Florida. Now, a lot is going to happen over the next couple of weeks, of course, but is there an argument for bracket watching just a bit? Because I wouldn't want to be in the same bracket as Auburn. I don't want to be in the same bracket as Houston. Obviously, once you get to the dance, you're playing good teams. And once you get deep into the dance where State expects to be, you're playing the best of the best. But a 1 seed potentially on the line, does that influence that at all? I mean, Michigan State's not exactly going to be one and done in this Big Ten tournament. Like, we're talking about it's not that big of a deal if they go on and try to win the whole thing. But seeding has to matter a little bit, right?
Maybe, but not really. To me, seeding doesn't help you. Like, you're just going in to play. Like, you got to play the games on the floor anyway. It's supposed to be like an easier route for a certain team. Dude, it don't exist.
There's no such thing as easy in the NCAA tournament.
You just got to go out and play. Do I think they want to be a 1 seed? Yeah, but also, if I'm being honest, I don't think tournament play, like conference tournament play, factors into seeding too much, if at all. Like, really, the only seeding it factors into is the lower seeds once teams start to get those auto bids and out of those smaller teams. And now you're getting the 13 seeds filling in the 15s. Like, then that's when teams that are in their tournaments are like, well, I'm kind of on the bubble, or I don't know what seed I'm going to be. Let me get a couple wins in my tournament to boost my resume so I look a little bit better right before they pick seeding. But if you're at the top, you're in the top 4. You're probably not going to get a shift in your grade or in your rank, in your seed due to, conference tournament. Everybody's kind of in that same position.
Michigan State in the basketball power index on ESPN coming in at around 11th on that. You see some of the better teams in the country, whether it's Duke, Houston, Auburn, Florida, who's kind of surged here recently. Those taking up the top 4, and then it's Tennessee, Alabama, Iowa State, Texas Tech, Gonzaga, Arizona ahead of Michigan State. And even as an Alabama fan, and even acknowledging that the SEC is really, really good this year. I mean, you've got Florida, Tennessee, and Alabama all kind of hanging out there in the same spot. I'm not so sure that when I look around, I see teams that are better than Michigan State. I feel like even still, Michigan State being ranked number 8 in the AP poll, and all these other teams kind of still getting that recognition above them, and especially a team like Alabama. Alabama's like 1-6 against these top 5 SEC schools. So why in the world are they still getting so much love off of, early season success? That's some of the stuff that doesn't add up to me. I do think there is some value in Michigan State making a sincere run at winning the tournament. I acknowledge that you're mostly right that, once you get to the tournament, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you're going to be seated where you're seated, and it's not going to be an easy route to the national championship no matter what you do. But it still just doesn't add up to me that Michigan State is keeping closer company to Kansas and Maryland and Kentucky in, a computer analyzed power index versus those of Duke, Houston, and Auburn. And maybe that's some ignorance on my part as a college basketball person. I don't claim to be even an analyst, more or less, much less an expert, but, just seems a little strange to me. Michigan State certainly has high expectations as we begin the postseason here very soon. On the flip side of that, I'm sure this is going to bleed into the next segment, but Michigan is in a struggle situation where they have lost way too much, way too late. At the moment, as we're talking, they are still second in the Big Ten, but it does not feel like it. And they can actually, DJ, finish as low as fifth in the Big Ten if the teams behind them, Maryland, Wisconsin, and Purdue, all win their games this weekend. And that is a stark possibility because all of those teams are playing teams that are much lower in the standings comparatively. So, I mean, this thing has really kind of come off the rails late here for Michigan.
Yeah, I don't think I have time to dive into this, so I will pick up on the flip side.
All right, we'll be right back here on Mitten Madness 95.3 WBCK. All right, we're back here on Mitten Madness 95.3 WBCK. We're talking about the Michigan Wolverines. Ran out of time there, but the Wolverines, losers of 3 of their past 5 since losing to Michigan State a few weeks ago. Things are getting bad, DJ. Really bad at like the worst possible time. Could finish as low as 5th in the Big Ten depending on outcomes this weekend. I mean, It wasn't 2 weeks ago. We were talking about how maybe the Wolverines were the one team that could challenge the Spartans for winning the regular season Big Ten championship and also having a legitimate argument and reason, because they're even more underrated than the Spartans, to go on and win the Big Ten tournament to validate themselves heading into March Madness. But all of that seems like a pipe dream right now.
I think they're fine. I don't think it's necessarily a pipe dream, but
fine.
Hear me out. Hear me out. Like I was just mentioning, you look at the game on Wednesday, played Maryland, they lost by 6. They had 16 turnovers in that game, and they lost by 6.
That is the very definition of not fine. 16 turnovers.
But when you're shooting 35% from the 3, 44% from the field, you're getting 60+% from the free throw percentage, and then you're still causing, you're getting, on average, 4 steals a game. You're getting a couple blocks a game, but you're rebounding well. They're averaging about 39 to 40 rebounds a game. You're going to have opportunities. Like, they do everything about the game of basketball well, but handle the ball. They've turned it over like crazy.
This is all the same things we have been saying since the loss to Minnesota. We're talking nearly 2 months of incredible consistency. Whoa. I'll give them that.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that the turnovers are not a problem.
Right.
But what I'm saying is,
they do everything else well.
They have enough to combat that to where if they can cut out I'm not saying, they need to go out and not turn the ball over 5 times a game. No. You take away 5 of those turnovers, 11, 10, Michigan wins that game.
If wishes and nuts.
I'm not saying wishes and nuts. That's just you fix. Like, that is fixable. You can,
but they haven't fixed it. Is my point.
Yes, they have. They have had games that have been 10 or under in turnovers. They just had a really bad game against Maryland.
True.
And they had a really bad game against State with turnovers. Like, it's either they have a game where they can manage the few turnovers they have, or they have an awful time holding on to the ball. You have to be able to find a middle road because you're going to turn the ball over.
Right.
Find that middle road where you're somewhere between, like, I would say 7 to 12 turnovers is a good range for this team.
Yeah.
Once you get over 12, you're screwed.
The problem is they flirt with 12 a lot. And that's my point is it's not that I'm arguing that Michigan is bad. They're not bad by any stretch of the imagination. They're a very good basketball team. They have one fatal flaw that has tripped them up a few too many times. But we're by no means sitting here and calling a 22-8 team headed into the final game of the regular season bad. Not at all. I do think that there's a ceiling on their capabilities because of this. And, you know, even if they perform exceptionally well in the Big Ten tournament, which they're liable to do, I still think it's a non-zero chance that they win the whole damn thing. But when we start looking at March Madness, depending on how that Big Ten tournament goes, how the turnovers are in that Big Ten tournament, I'm not so sure that you're looking at a team that can get to the field of 32, let alone a Sweet 16 or any other higher accolades that you might be considering as a successful season for this specific Michigan Wolverines team, who, by all accounts, exceeded expectations coming into this season. They were not a consistent top 20 team, expected, you know, incredible offense, incredible paint control. Like, they rebound very well. They do a lot of things very well. But when you're turning the ball over like they are, and you've been turning the ball over like that more or less consistently this entire time, it's not going to just magically change in the pressure moments that these two tournaments present. And that's the biggest issue for the Michigan Wolverines, if you ask me.
I mean, yeah, that is the biggest issue, but sometimes your biggest issue is not something you can fix. It's just something you can manage. They just haven't been doing a good job of managing that recently. You have a couple of quick games here where you're kind of going to be playing teams that are not your level. Work on these things. Even if you lose one of these games, it kind of doesn't matter because you know you're playing in the NCAA tournament. Work on taking care of the ball over the next couple of weeks so you can be in a position to be somewhere between 7 and 12 and find yourself winning games rather than losing them with almost 20 turnovers. Great.
I was trying to look at the projected matchup for them.
They haven't even really got there yet because so much can happen this weekend.
Well, even still looking at those bottom teams in the Big Ten, like I can see at the very bottom.
I think the bottom four are not in. They don't make the tournament.
Right.
So
4 or 2, I don't know.
I think it's 4.
Yeah, my whole computer is crapped out on me. Anyway, looking at the bottom of this, I agree with you. Like, no matter who they're playing, I mean, unfortunately, you can't play Washington, Penn State. They've already been eliminated. Iowa and Nebraska is going to determine the final seed, and then we'll go from there. As of right now, the number 2 seed is set to play the winner of Game 7, which would be the number 7 seed versus Game 3. You see where I'm going with this? A lot of the bad teams are going to get out of the way pretty early in this, so best case scenario, you're playing most likely in Ohio State. It doesn't get better. Or a Rutgers or a Minnesota. I could see Rutgers getting up there and then having to play an Illinois team that just handled you as well. I agree with what you're saying. You're going to play teams that you're better than, and that's a great opportunity to fix the problems that you've been facing. I don't think they can fix them, because if they were going to fix them, they'd have done it by now. It's not that that's a hard, fast rule. Like, they can't and they won't just because Jacob said so. But trends are trends, man. And this is a negative trend that is impacting an otherwise positive team. And that's a tough thing to overcome. If you want to talk about basketball in Michigan that is not trending in the wrong direction, though, you look out to Detroit. You watch some Detroit basketball because the Pistons are playing incredible. They have the same record as the Golden State Warriors. Now, listen, I know the Golden State Warriors are not the same team that was doing their thing almost a decade ago, but it's impressive what the Pistons have put together. They've won, I want to say 4 of their last 6. My computer is done. Like,
yes, that is true.
It's not doing anything.
4 of the last 6. That's true. That's a win over the Clippers, Boston, the Nets, and the Jazz, and then losses to the Nuggets and the Clippers.
And that's the most respectable way you can do that, right? You beat some teams that are a bit, maybe a tier above you.
No, they should have beat the Clippers twice.
No, I agree with that. But you beat a team that's a tier above you with the Boston Celtics. Incredible. You lost to a perennial championship team in the Nuggets. Fine.
Perennial is a stretch, my sir.
Have they not been in the conversation for the past 3 or 4 years?
That doesn't make them perennial.
That's perennial.
Oh, my Jesus.
Did we not get the dictionary out? That's perennial in basketball.
Just go on with your point. Just go on.
You don't have to be the 2010s Golden State Warriors or the Cavs or the Lakers.
Go on with your point.
Anyway, they competed against teams that are in that tier above them. They handled teams that are in that tier below them. Clippers caught them. It's whatever. They're on a 3-game road trip here, and it's not like they got blown out.
4-game.
They've got another one after this Warriors game. So we'll pick that Warriors game at the end of the show too, by the way. But I mean, all things considered, they're keeping pace with Indiana and Milwaukee in the division. So they've got an opportunity to continue to climb in the standings and in the playoff seeding and all that. Things are looking really, really good for the Pistons. Again, just like the Spartans, at exactly the right time.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about the team as a whole. We're here to talk about K.
Talk about K.
CC, the man, nobody's talking about it, should be on the most improved list. He should be on the most improved list. It's not that he hasn't been this good, but he has not shown it at all in the NBA. And honestly, if we want to look at some of the stars in the league right now, i.e. one that is killing it at the guard position, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he won an MIP. Tyrese Halliburton won an MIP. I believe Giannis won an MIP. It's not a bad award to get. It proves that you went from being a person who, yeah, you may be number one on your team, but nobody else is checking for you to, okay, like, you would be number one on multiple teams in the league, and you're showing that you are an asset to your team and you can drive them to positions they haven't been before. And that is what we're seeing with Cade Cunningham. His numbers are off the charts. I hope that he gets into that MIP conversation because I do feel like that is the best chance for him to win an award in a year that he deserves one, other than just being an all-star and making it back to the playoffs.
I mean, even still, he deserved that all-star recognition. I agree with you. I mean, most improved doesn't necessarily mean that you were bad before, but I mean, heading into last season, you were questioning whether or not he could be that star type of player to help lead and turn this team around. And while last year wasn't a bad season for him by any stretch of the imagination, he didn't help the team win more than 17 games. This season, ring leader, more than double the team wins, 35-28. They're fantastic. They're going to the playoffs. No doubt about that. And there's still room for improvement. And this Warriors game is a great opportunity for them to continue to prove who they are and rebound while you're on this West Coast road trip too, against a really good team after dropping one of the Clippers. Like you said, you probably should win that game. So, very exciting times. Little concerning to let James Harden score 50 points. Little concerning. I know he's James Harden. And he's been known to do some fantastical things.
He's James Harden.
He's on the back end of his career, though, so it's a little bit concerning.
Nah, he's James Harden.
It's a little bit concerning. But it's not anything to write home about, and it's nothing to say, whoa, we're not good enough. Not at all. But that's all the time we have for that. When we come back, we'll quickly touch on the Red Wings and what's going on with them. Things don't look great, but we'll also start to pay a little bit more attention to the NFL and the Detroit Lions and what they should be doing in NFL free agency, which kicks off next week. That and more on Mitten Madness next on 95.3 WBCK.
Detroit sports fans, Wolverines and Spartans alike. This is your sports show, Mitten Madness, with Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes on 95.3 WBCK.
on Mitten Madness, 95.3 WBCK. Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes about to talk some Detroit Lions free agency and the Detroit Red Wings. But first, let me tell you real quick about Third Coast Move Manager, serving Southwest Michigan with expert senior moving services as well as small movements. How they're helping me is with a small apartment move from Battle Creek, over to Kalamazoo, and they can help you in a similar fashion, whether you're downsizing, preparing for real estate market, relocation services, and especially their specialty, assistance with aging in place, whether that's downsizing your elderly family members' homes or getting them into a smaller place, period, whether that's assisted living or their own apartment. That's what they specialize in, and they'd love to give you a hand. Check them out online, thirdcoastmove.com, or give them a call, 269-271-3650. Third Coast Move Managers, helping you with your small moving needs. All right, let's talk Red Wings real quick. I'm not going to lie, DJ. I'm starting to lose hope. I can't keep doing this. I don't know how you guys keep doing it. 4-game losing streak, including 2 straight to the Blue Jackets. And a loss to the Hurricanes and the Utah Hockey Club. Things are starting to look rough out here for the Red Wings. They're now 30-26-6, 5th in the Atlantic Division. They have fallen out of the wild card position, and it just seems really difficult to get back on that horse because we talked about it at length heading into the All-Star break. The second half of this schedule is not easy. You're going to have a cupcake here in about 5 days when you play Buffalo, and that's the only reprieve you're going to get. Washington, Ottawa, the Buffalo game. Carolina, Vegas, Washington, Vegas, Utah, Colorado. Good luck, dude. I'm sorry. I'm losing a lot of hope over here that the Red Wings are going to sustain this and allow Detroit to go 4 for 4 with its professional programs in the playoffs. Am I wrong, DJ?
No, I told everybody this was going to happen. I really did. I told everybody that they were going to have to maintain the little bit of momentum they had going into the All-Star break and just come out and at least play well against the teams that are near them. They haven't done that. Went out and lost to the Blue Jackets in the Stadium Series. You can't do that. Like they just haven't been doing the things that they need to do. But it's tough. Hockey's a long, grueling season. It's a grueling sport, and it's one where momentum sways often. You can have it for a minute, and then it's gone for a while. The Red Wings can't hold on to it for a minute. It's here for a second, then it's gone for a long time. I think it's just a mix of factors, from injuries to just other teams being really good this year, new pieces in the locker room. There's a lot going on with the Red Wings team, but they're going to have to really get on the horse here and now if they want to really make a push to get back into the wild card picture, not the playoff picture. Yeah, to expand upon where they're at, they are 2 spots out from the bottom of the wild card, but their goal differential is -18, which is starting to really flirt with the Montreals and Bostons and New York Islanders much more than it is with the 3 teams ahead of them in playoff positioning. The Rangers, Senators, and Jackets are all plus or minus within a range of 3. The Rangers are +3, the Senators are -2, and the Blue Jackets are +2. And the Red Wings are -18. Trends don't lie, man. They're 4-5-1 in their last 10, but they're 2-5 since returning from the All-Star break. Things are not looking good. 2 road games coming up here. Washington played last night. Obviously, you know the results of that game. Ottawa on Monday night and Buffalo on Wednesday. Savor that Buffalo home game, especially if Washington and Ottawa are losses, because if that's the case, I'm not so sure things aren't going to get really ugly in Detroit at Little Caesars when you're not talking about the Pistons. All right, let's talk about the Lions. We haven't had a chance to talk about the Lions in quite a while, but NFL free agency gets started next week, and the Detroit Lions are one team that is going to be looking to make some type of adjustments, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. We're sure to make some improvements coming off of a 15-2 record-setting year.
Still not quite good enough to get to their first Super Bowl. DJ, when you look at the free agent pool or you look at the Detroit Lions roster, what are the things that stand out to you that the Lions definitely need to improve in free agency? Not just overall. We all know they need another pass rusher, but what do they need to do in free agency?
Depth? It's a tough question for me because I don't quite know the Lions roster as well as I know my own team's roster. And I don't think that there's really a lot wrong with the Lions. We've talked about this in a couple months ago with the end of the season coming and why I felt the end of the season came. Injuries and luck. You have been riding a lot of luck with the injuries you had, and both of those finally caught up to you on the same day, and you weren't able to beat a pretty good team in the playoffs. I don't really think they need any moves other than to add depth to what they already have. Go get a veteran guy to help in the locker room and kind of just point things out to guys and be mentors. Go get a young guy has time to develop under the guys that you currently have. Just go add pieces to your puzzle. You don't have to go and really change or add anything, obviously, unless you're going to go and get a pass rusher of big nature. But other than that, there's really not a lot of moves, in my opinion, for the Lions to make in free agency.
There are quite a few options when it comes to pass rushers. Everybody is fully aware that is the biggest need for the Lions. So I'll pivot the question just a bit and give you some options. Josh Sweat is arguably the most sought after free agent coming up. Had a huge performance in the Super Bowl. Really, truly should have been up for Super Bowl MVP more than he was. Khalil Mack is a free agent, though he may go back to Los Angeles after Joey Bosa also became a free agent. Hassan Riddick, you get some off the field issues there, but a talented player nonetheless. And then Malcolm Kuntz from the Las Vegas Raiders, not the world, but he's 27 and would be a bit more of a bargain than those first four names that I provided to you. There's also looming out there the potential to get Myles Garrett in a trade, though you're going to have to wait until after June 1st to pull that trade off. You're not getting Max Crosby, who was just signed to an extension and a massive contract that made him the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. And then you've got the draft. So I pose the question to you. If you're Brad Holmes and you know you've got to make this one adjustment, and the best possible decision you can make is after June 1st when free agency and the draft have come to pass, what's your approach? I mean, are you targeting the draft and looking for a young pass rusher to pair with Aiden Hutchinson for maybe the next decade, or are you holding out for Myles Garrett or shooting your shot on one of these free agents?
I mean, just shoot your shot. The worst they say is no. And then you try and trade. Okay, he doesn't. You look in the draft. You can't really go wrong going step by step. You either get something you like or you don't. And then you move on. It sounds very similar to, I don't know, dating.
I was about to say the same thing. DJ's just giving dating advice.
It makes total sense to me. Free agency is dating. And to me, a lot of teams haven't dated correctly. They go and date one guy. What are you doing? Then when that one guy goes and he's been dating everybody else and he chooses somebody else, now you're like, well, we don't have anybody to fill that spot because we were only going after the one guy. Go after five guys. And then you get to pick the one you want. I don't know, man. Go get a burger and shake and fries if you want at the same time. All I'm saying is you got to be able to have options and take all of them.
He's like, just go in order, man. Don't overthink it. Sports radio, we got to overthink it just a little bit. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, it is time for us to make our picks for an exciting weekend. It's rivalry weekend in college basketball. Big fight coming up as well. We'll dive into it next here on Mitten Madness, 95.3 WBCK.
95.3 WBCK.
All right, we're back here on Mitten Madness, 95.3 WBCK. Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes. We're set to make our picks for a fun weekend of basketball. Mostly college basketball games here, a rivalry weekend. We'll also take that Pistons and Warriors game in just a bit as well. But first, DJ is going to update us on them their standings.
You did good last week.
I did.
4-2. I went 3-3. That gives you a 1-game lead at 12-6, and I'm currently at 11-7.
Well, let's try to keep it up. A lot of these games can go either way, so let's get it started with a top 20 matchup between the Kentucky Wildcats and the Missouri Tigers. These two teams have been duking it out in the mud of the middle of the SEC, where a lot of great teams are still playing some really good basketball. Kentucky's on a 1-game winning streak because they beat LSU, but they lost to Auburn on the 1st of March. They also lost to Alabama. They've lost a handful of those big-time matchups in the SEC. However, Missouri is 10-7 in conference because they've dropped 3 of their last 4, including to Oklahoma and Vanderbilt and Arkansas, all on the road. But they are at home in Mizzou Arena in Columbia, Missouri, with a 51.7% shot of taking down the Wildcats before we get to the SEC tournament. DJ, who you got, Tigers or Wildcats?
Oh, this one's tough because I think these teams are very similar to each other. I think that they are, they match up very well, and they're kind of in that same middle of the pack, hence being 15-19. They're both going to be, both should be tournament, NCAA tournament teams. I've seen Kentucky play. They play with a great energy, but there's been something about Mizzou this year that has really made them successful. I think it's just the way they spread the ball around, the way they use each other on the floor. And the big thing is that this is at Mizzou Arena, so I'm going to go with the Tigers.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with the home team on this as well. Kentucky hasn't lost very many SEC games that weren't to some of those top flight Auburn, Florida, Alabama, Tennessee teams. But they have been known to drop a few, and most of those have been on the road. Missouri being back at home after dropping those last 3 road games is going to do them some good. Lest we forget, they beat Alabama at home there in mid-February. They can take care of the Kentucky Wildcats for sure. Give me Missouri.
That's going to take us over to a game happening in the Big East. St. John's Red Storm taking on the Marquette Golden Eagles. This one's going to be on Fox noon. Tip-off on Saturday. 17-2 are the Red Storm. I guess it is Saturday as you guys are listening to this. Yeah, this is going off in about an hour. And the Red Storm are 17-2 in the Big East. They're 6th in the country, taking on the 20th team in the country, 13-6 in that same conference. They're giving the Golden Eagles a 62.6% chance to win this game at the FISAR Forum. Do they have it or no?
This one's tough. St. John's on a 5-game winning streak, and Marquette just dropped one to Connecticut. That's a respectable loss, but Connecticut's not exactly the Connecticut that, did what Connecticut did last year. I'm going to stick with St. John's. It seems like the smart thing to do.
Yeah, I would love to say that, looking at the Seton Hall comparisons, 71-61 win for St. John's in comparison to an 80-56 win for the Golden Eagles. St. John and Seton Hall are rivals, so I will not be factoring that into my decision. I think St. John's has played really good basketball, and there's a reason they're number 6 in the country and have only lost twice in that Big East, and I don't think the Golden Eagles are going to be able to give them another loss, although it will be a good game. I'm taking St. John's as well.
All right. We picked this one the first time around. I think it tripped up DJ a little bit. This time we've got Duke and North Carolina at the Dean E. Smith Center in Chapel Hill. Duke and North Carolina. It doesn't get much bigger than that in college basketball. Even when North Carolina is 20-11 and they've had a bit of a struggle of a season, they're on a 6-game winning streak, just 1 game back from Duke in that regard. And they're fighting for their postseason lives here, just about their 5th in the ACC, and a win here would close the gap between them and SMU and Louisville considerably. So the North Carolina Tar Heels need this one badly, but Duke is one of the best teams in the country. DJ, who's got this one?
This is Duke. No question. I don't think there's much you can say other than Cooper Flagg is literally the best basketball player in the country. In multiple ways. He looks very good out on the floor. He dominates games, and I just don't see UNC having anyone to really compete and affect the outcome and the impact he has in the game. But It will be a close game because we are talking Duke and UNC. We are talking about this game being in Chapel Hill. It will be in the Dean E. Smith Center. And North Carolina's on a 5-game win streak coming into this game. They're 13-6 in the conference. It's not like they've had a terrible year. They just haven't had a 27-3, 18-1 year like the Duke Blue Devils had with a possible number 1 draft pick on your team.
Yeah, Duke's an 11.5-point favorite for a reason. I agree with you. I don't think Duke's going to cover that number, but they've earned it because they're pretty special. I'm going to go with Duke as well, but I agree. North Carolina's going to keep it close.
That is going to keep us in the college basketball realm for just a little bit longer. A game that all of you are looking forward to because it's the most important game of the year now. Michigan Wolverines traveling up to East Lansing to take on the Michigan State Spartans. 8-13. The Spartans already outright Big Ten champs. This is just to kind of solidify seeding and other things. But a rivalry is a rivalry. Can the Wolverines strike back and take down the Spartans in the Breslin after letting the Spartans come into the Chrysler Center and slay the Wolverines?
These Wolverines better be channeling their inner Hugh Jackman if they think they're about to come back for a sequel to make something happen here, because that's what it's going to take. I'm sorry, DJ. The answer is no. The Michigan State Spartans will win this basketball game.
Hey, you know what I got to say to that? They said you ain't make it unless you got haters. So the Wolverines, we have made it. Jacob's over here hating, which means we're in a pretty good spot. All right. I think we have an awesome opportunity. Nothing hurts worse than losing to your rival on your home floor. A great example of this, Kalamazoo Central in Kalamazoo and Muskegon. For the last 4 or 5 years, they have just gone back and forth beating each other by 50 because they keep beating each other in the other's gym. That stings. That stays with you. You remember that, and you want to go back and pay and get some payback for it. I think the Wolverines are thinking about that loss and how much it's affected them and how they can get back and get some good momentum heading into both tournaments as that play begins to come about. And I got the Wolverines making me proud this weekend.
Well, I understand where you're coming from, and if you want to talk about a team has made it because they've got some haters, there ain't nobody else to talk about but the Alabama Crimson Tide in that regard. All of you guys hate us as much as you possibly can, and you're all reveling in my misery as the Tide is 2-3 in their last 5, and they're on a 2-game losing streak, having lost on the road to Tennessee and at home to Florida, who has surged and come out of nowhere to take that second spot in the SEC away from the Crimson Tide. And now Alabama heads to the jungle to take on the Auburn Tigers. Oh, the Tigers are on a losing streak of their own, though it is just one game. They dropped one to the Texas A&M Colt by a score of 83-72. But Auburn is the top team in the nation. They are a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament and number 1 in the AP poll. Can the Crimson Tide get back on track ahead of the SEC tournament and beat the Auburn Tigers, or will Auburn continue to reign supreme over the SEC and the college basketball world?
No. Auburn will win again. They are number 1 in the country for a reason. They're 15-2 in the SEC for a reason. They are 27-3 for a reason. And Janai Broome is that reason. That kid is absolutely insane. Everyone feeds off of his energy, and they do a great job of really just rallying around each other and playing good ball. And I think the worst part is Crimson Tide had a very good chance of winning that game when it was at Alabama. This game's in Neville Arena, which has easily become one of the hardest places to play in the country.
Seriously.
And I don't think the Crimson Tide have enough to come out with a victory.
Yeah, but I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of me picking Auburn. I'm going to roll with the Tide just the same way that you rolled with Michigan. I mean, you gave some platitudes and some reasons. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to choose my alma mater because that's what you're supposed to do in this situation.
You are absolutely correct, which gets us to our last game of the week. I saw this game earlier in the year. The Golden State Warriors came on over to Little Caesars Arena. They were able to escape with a 5-point victory, 3-point victory, something like that. 3-point victory, 107-104. Fantastic game. Steph Curry actually was held to like 13 points, and the Pistons are right there. Now there's a chance for them to get back, even the series up, and feel a little bit better. Over in the Chase Center, 8:30 p.m. on Saturday. They are giving the Warriors a 64.1% chance to win. But the Pistons are 18-14 on the road in comparison to 17-13 at home for the Warriors. And two teams that are 35-28. Who comes out with 36 wins and who's coming out with 29 losses?
Well, I tell you, Tobias Harris being a game-time decision is a significant factor, that's for sure. Detroit would love to have him available in this one, whereas in the same vein, Golden State's hoping that they have some of their big guys there as well. But I think that Detroit is going to get back right on this road trip. The Clippers game, kind of what it was. Steph Curry has been known to go for 50, but I don't think he's going to follow up James Harden and score 50 just because he wants to, because apparently that's why James Harden did it. No, I think the Pistons get back right, pick up that 36th victory, and hopefully make some more headway in the division and keep pace with Indiana and Milwaukee. I'm going with the hometown team, the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Pistons here as well. To me, it's a get-back week. I'm picking pretty much everybody to get their get back except for Bama over Auburn. So
thanks.
I'm here for
Appreciate it.
So that has us rocking with St. John's together, Mizzou, Pistons, and Duke. You've got Michigan State, I've got Michigan, you've got Bama, and I got Auburn. You know what time it is. Into the weekend we go.
Almost sounds spiteful that we chose each other's rivals. That's crazy. All right, we get into the weekend and we say goodbye for the summer, the spring and the summer, to Coach's Corner next week. Following Community Matters will be the Cowardly Gardener with Bob. He'll be back to provide the entertainment in the 9 o'clock hour, and we will continue to follow at 10 a.m. for an hour of Michigan sports talk. We'll do it again next week, so we'll see you then. Take it easy.
Join Jacob Harrison and Da'Jzon Hughes every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. for Mitten Madness on 95.3 WBCK. Miss the show or want to run it back? Stream Mitten Madness on demand on the WBCK app. Sponsored by airwaycashforjunkcars.com.